So what does climate change mean for Africa? Is it something that's over the horizon? Is it something that's in the never never? Or is it with us here today? Let's hear from Archbishop Tutu now about climate justice, climate change, and the perspective from Africa.
How long have I got?
How long would you like, sir?
I am a preacher.
We don't have all day, but we have a lot of time for you, sir.
No, thank you so very, very much. Coffee, you look like Morgan Freeman, I mean, up there.
This is no acting.
He's speaking like business. God, isn't he? Yes. No, I'm so very grateful to be here, and for us to be sitting at the feet of Kofi and Mary. I am surprised that your introduction, they don't mention that you're the first woman to be president of Ireland. It's quite important, I mean, because if we're going to be talking about human rights and things of that kind, we can't separate it off from what has been happening in terms of our the discrimination against women. And so, I mean, you've made a very important mark. And I would have thought, you know, you really wanted to give Mary a small little clap. I always like when they, you know, often when they say, oh, well, he actually does not need to be introduced, you know, he's so well known. And I have to tell, it's an old story, but it is a nice story, even if I have to say so. A few years ago, when I went to San Francisco, a lady came up, really very warm and effusive, and she said, "Hello, Archbishop Mandela." Sort of getting two for the price of one. But I am so very pleased to be here with you, and want to echo a very important point that Kofi Annan has made, that there are so many young people. It's not something that we should be taking for granted. It is your world, and we oldies have made a mess of it, by and large. And we are bequeathing to you a world that faces a very real and very serious threat of extinction. You know, there was a time when you talked about climate change, and it was regarded as the domain of these peculiar Green Party people. It was, oh, why are they such a nuisance? Well, it isn't a theory any longer. It isn't something out there on the horizon. It is for real. A year or so ago, I was in, what?
Excuse me, sir. I'm going to bring this
am I not doing the right thing?
We want to hear you, every word, every golden syllable.
Thank you for coming so close to me. Yeah. I was in Tromsø in Norway, and I was asked to preach at a service which had to do with climate change, environment, and so on. And they had a block of ice next to the pulpit, which was melting. A very good way of stopping preachers going on for long. And then we had 3 women come. One was a bishop, a woman bishop from Greenland, who said they can no longer go hunting. You know, they've got to skate over the ice. They could no longer do that because the ice was so thin. Can you see the change in the lives of people? And the polar bears were drowning because they couldn't, well, I mean, each time they walked on the ice, it was so thin that they sank, and so the whole landscape, the whole environment was already changed. The lifestyle of these people was already changing. And then there was a young woman from the South Sea Islands. We talk sometimes very glibly about the rising level of the sea because of the ice that is melting. Well, for her, it wasn't just a theory. It wasn't something way away in the distance that might still impact their lives. She says, the rising level of the sea was threatening to overwhelm her island home. You understand that? That if the patterns continued in the way they have, in a little while there would be no island. And she said too that already the trees on her island home were dying because they were being contaminated by the salt water. The third was a young woman from Nigeria who said, the people around her, the villages that are near each other, the people in those villages are engaging in conflict because they are quarreling over a diminishing pasture. And I know that you know that part of the reason why Darfur is happening now is rivalry over pasturage. Well, if you still thought, no, I mean, we're talking about things that are happening miles away,